Hi, Super Mookers. Jason and I are
We're here
back again at Alter Ego Comics, coming to you in our last interview for this MOOC.
Yeah.
So it's been good.
It has been good. High five.
High five.
Good job.
All right. We had a few technical difficulties on this, which, you know, goes with us. It was all our fault. And and today we have with us to talk about our media, government intervention, and information privacy module, the author of the Nightly News. Thank you, Vanna. Jonathan Hickman. Yay! Welcome to the MOOC.
Thank you guys for having me.
We appreciate it, and thanks for sticking through and with our struggles to get you on here. But it's totally worth it just to have you here. So, so for this MOOC, we read the Nightly News, and so we had some of our questions, or some of our students put in questions. So we're just going to kind of jump right in and start asking questions that our students sent in, which I just said 3 times. So, hey, it's a Thursday or Friday night, whatever. All right. So Felix wrote in. He said, did you struggle with the ending of Nightly News? Did you always know that John would shoot the newscaster instead of the senator? And did you ever change your mind about flipping it the other way?
I did not. This isn't really a media answer, but usually whenever I am writing a story, one of the things that I am fairly confident about going in is how it should end. I maybe have changed my mind 2 times I can think of in anything that I've written in the last 7, 8 years or whatever. So no, I felt like I felt like he earned the ending. I think that we as the reader deserved to lose. You could argue because of what the book was about. I remain pretty happy with that book. I haven't read it in a while. I honestly, I usually throw most of my stuff away after I do it because I hate it so much. But Nightly News is kind of special in that it was the first thing that I ever had published, and I love working on that book. That book kind of changed my life. It was nice. Well,
it's amazing, and we love it. So. You should reread it. It's pretty good. That Hickman kid, he's got a career.
Yeah, he can.
So, Felix also asked, what did you want the audience to get out of the conclusion of the story?
What did I want the audience to get what out of the story?
Yeah, out of the end of it.
Oh, it's weird. Because there's this crazy confluence of our industry, the comic book industry, and other forms of entertainment, and all of those other forms of entertainment are mostly owned by media conglomerates in one way or the other, and so it's kind of crazy how that book seems more relevant with each passing year. And yet it has been the thing that has been the hardest for us to get somebody to take a bite on, which probably isn't surprising, right? But yeah. I think it's a I don't like using words like important in dealing with fiction and narrative and that kind of stuff. But of all the things that I've written, it feels like the one that it remains resonant and feels kind of important. I think it's a timely message. I think it's of the day. So what people are supposed to get out of it, don't believe anything that you see on television, right? Or read in the paper, or listen to on the radio. That seems fair nowadays, especially.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Do you want to ask the question that Joseph Music just sent in?
Well, yeah, this is kind of relevant. How would you How would you, with a story, explain Ferguson? How would you characterize the conflict in terms of the media reporting?
See, the relevant, important.
Yeah, relevant.
You were right on it.
I think it's bad. I think it's bad. I think it's tough because when Ferguson broke out, none of the bigger media were part of it. They were slow and they weren't there. And instead, what we got was citizen journalism or whatever you want to call it. And now it's settled. It's been a week and a half, I guess. Is that right? Has it been a week and a half? It seems like so much longer, but I think that's what we're talking about. But the big media is on it, and they're spinning their narratives and marketing to their constituents and being as disingenuous as they normally are. But I honestly don't know that the citizen reporting that we got at the beginning of it was any better. I think it's the kind of like we learned in the Iraq War that embedded journalism is a really, really dishonest bad thing because it's almost first person perspective as the role of the protagonist of any story that you're telling. It doesn't matter what side you're on or where you're placed. The story is the story that's happening around you, and what it should be is a holistic pool of information that explains why all of this is happening. And I don't think that we got either. And so it continues to be bad, and it will get worse. And how would I write that story? I wouldn't. I wouldn't come close to that story. I don't think anybody that's talking about it in terms of narrative is going to come across as anything but didactic, which is triply bad, right? That's 3 times bad. So, I think that's a terrible answer, but I think it's the reality.
No, it's smart. That's not something that anybody's gonna win right now.
No.
So Jeffrey Whitman asked, what was the reaction to nightly news? Did you hear back from anyone in the media or get any grief from using actual names or companies?
No, I didn't get any of that. I got well, it's been a couple years. But if I recall correctly, the response was all very, very good. I mean, we got nominated for an Eisner, and we got all kind of accolades, and everybody was talking about the book because it was both narratively interesting, I suppose, but it was also visually interesting, which is what comics should be, right?
Exactly.
But no, the reactions ranged from hey man, are you down for the? We're also down for the revolution, which, if you know me, it's not me at all. But that was kind of that was interesting. But I got a lot of correspondence from people that work in the media that are just as frustrated as the people that are the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really good reporters out there that aren't able to do the job that they would want to do. So.
Okay, so
speaking of the design of Nightly News, was the design of it your idea? Jeffrey goes on to say it seems quite disjointed and busy as opposed to a typical newscast. And I realize that's partially because it's in comics form, but was the design of the book and the feel of it like your idea?
Yes, well, sure. Since I did everything, of course, it's all my ideas. But it absolutely is supposed to feel like information overload. Like there's so much on each page that it's, you can read just the word balloons, and you get a certain experience, and then you can go back and you can read all the information graphics, and you get kind of a different experience. But then when you there's also the little aside notes and all that kind of stuff that's kind of like commentary on the story that's actually being told. And then you can go back and you can read it all together, and it's a different experience. So, yeah, it was absolutely intentional. But that's what happens whenever it's the only book that you're working on. Like, I wish I still had the luxury of only doing one book at a time so that I could put that kind of effort and thought and consideration into it. And I'm speaking of things to come, that's probably going to be my next big thing, is just trying to work on one big project a year that I do everything. So.
Now, speaking of that, what all books are you writing right now?
I write the Avengers and New Avengers for Marvel, which is, those are double shipping books, so you're talking about a lot of comics. You guys are sitting in a comic book store. I think we put out 3 issues of New Avengers in the last 5 weeks, so that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But then at Image, the books that I own, or co-own, of course, I do the Manhattan Projects at Image Comics, which is what if the super geniuses that created the atomic bomb were actually crazy evil people, which is a lot of fun. And then I do a book called East of West at Image as well, which is kind of like a I don't know how to explain that book.
I always tell people it's a post-apocalyptic supernatural western.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But I don't think that in any way conveys it's a story about how.
Oh no, no, it doesn't.
No, say, ooh, I want to read that.
Yeah, that's my hook for them. When I say it's a post-apocalyptic supernatural western, they go, "Oh, okay, I'll buy that. That sounds like fun."
Yeah, I've always been really terrible at the high concept pitch. Like I've got a book I'm working on right now, an Image book that'll come out in 2015, and the high concept pitch of it is Indiana Jones for octogenarians, which is a terrible pitch. It's a terrible pitch, but it makes me laugh. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you had us at Indiana Jones.
Yeah, you say Indiana Jones, I'm in. So yeah, I'm wearing my Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's not the octogenarian part isn't the target demo.
Yeah, he's kind of an octogenarian times about. He's the old guy. Another kind of question that goes along with what you're saying earlier from Paul Heaslip. He said, when he was growing up, Philip Mentor, the war photographer, was my idol. It was only after realizing what these images really meant that I truly understood that he had found a way around the supervisor's oversight and censorship. And it takes a lot of skill to do that. He loved it that he learned a new phrase in your book, Gonzo Journalism. So good. And he said, did you have any newscasters in mind when you wrote this?
Yeah, well, I think Gonzo's journalism is a Hunter S. Thompson phrase, right? I think, right?
This is where he learned it, though, so.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. All the people that got murdered horribly were absolutely patterned after reporters that I think are terrible. So yes, I had some people in mind, but that's really kind of upper middle class deviant behavior, right? So it's there's no pride there, that's just me being shallow and terrible.
Therapy.
Sure. Also, you're locked in a room by yourself creating a book for quite a few hours every week, so you entertain yourself however you can. I'm sure Mark, you've seen the drill, right?
Yeah, we know the drill, and
Sure.
and I just started writing. I've got my first book coming out October 1st, so yeah.
Oh, cool. Fantastic.
It's about prison.
Sure.
Something you
We
know a lot
we love metaphors. So.
Well,
about.
this is about prison. No, it is kind of metaphorical, but I taught in prison, so this is
Sure.
about teaching in prison, but with a fiction take. All right, back to the question. Sorry.
Rafael dos Santos Lima. Did I butcher that? Probably.
Rafael dos Santos Lima.
Okay, there you go. What was the trigger point for you deciding to make Nightly News? Was there something that like sparked it, or just the overload of media?
Oh no, God no. I just wanted to tell a story that I thought was interesting. But it's kind of impossible to talk about that book without talking about kind of where I was. I mean, I was an advertising person. I was an art director at an ad company, and I absolutely hated that stuff. And so I had always wanted to make comics, and so I just decided that's what I was going to do. And so I came up with the idea for the story, and I put the pitch together, and I put it in the mail, and the guys, the wonderful people at Image Comics, picked it up out of the submission pile and gave me a publishing contract, and really, the book changed my life. So radically. I mean, I went from being a really, really miserable creative person to being a fairly fulfilled, lucky guy that's getting to do what he loves. So, the turning point was I needed to create something after years of shilling bullshit to people at an ad agency. So, but I tell everybody, you should always, everything you do is a gamble, but you should really take one good hard gamble on yourself at least once when you're an adult. I can't identify with people that don't. And I'm so happy that I did.
We are too.
Thank you.
The world is better with things like Nightly News and East of West and Manhattan Projects. Absolutely. And Avengers. Next question. Let's see. We asked that one.
Pick one.
Joseph Music. He said, thank you for an amazing piece of literature. Intrigue and information coupled together with mystery always works for me. Who are your literary influences?
Well, it changes a lot. I didn't used to be this way. The answer to the question used to be I read everything Frank Herbert wrote, especially all the Dune books, once a year, and on top of that, I was a big Cormac McCarthy guy. And then on top of that, it's all kind of screenwriting stuff. But I've become such a parasite creatively. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, there are periods every year where I take in so much new information just reading new books that it's impossible for it not to infect your head whenever your entire job is making story connections. And so if you're reading a book, you guys know who Chuck Klosterman is? He writes at Grantland. He writes these pretty cool books. But he just came out with a new book, I Wear the Black Hat, why America's in love with villains and anti-heroes.
Okay.
And I didn't even know it was coming out, but I had to catch a flight, and I was in the I may have been in LaGuardia. I don't know. That's an awful place, by the way. But I saw his book, and it's got a cool cover, and I just picked it up and I started reading it, and I had like 3 other books with me, but it so hooked me, and it made so many connections with the stuff that I was writing that it was almost viral. Like, I read the entire book. Not that that's an accomplishment. I like to finish all the books that I read. I read the whole thing probably in 2 days, but more importantly than that, it filtered down into every other book that I was reading at the time, and it just was kind of, the ideas become infectious. And so that's a very long-winded way to say I'm kind of over influences, and I'm more into like a data accumulation period right now, where I'm interconnecting a whole bunch of stuff that I'm reading, and it all gets disposed. The non-usable bits just get completely disposed of. Like, it's almost as if the narrative work that the other author that I read, and it doesn't matter whether it's a biography or not, or whether it's a work of fiction, or even if it's just an article in a newspaper, all that hard work by the other authors just gets completely trashed, and it's just kernels of ideas that remain. And I think that's because I've kind of found my voice over the past years. Like, the Nightly News was the first thing that I ever wrote. Like, that's the first script I ever wrote. And so I've spent a pretty heavy period of time learning to actually write. Like, I still don't consider myself a writer. I really think I'm more of a storyteller, and I think in my heart I'm actually more of a cartoonist than anything else. But I think I've finally found my voice, and now it's distilling everything into that. I don't know if that answers the question or not. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's kind of like you're viewing things through different lenses. As you learn things, you know, you have all these, because that's what happens a lot in this class, is that we're learning about certain things, and let's view this book through this lens. And I think that's good. That's the sign of being smart. So, awesome. Next question.
It looks like Emmanuel Lugo just wants to know your creative process. He says, how do you normally develop your stories? Do you have a notebook, or do you like Excel spreadsheet things? Do you leave your ideas alone for a while, then continue working on another? He was just kind of wondering your process, I think.
It depends who I'm working for. Like, I have a very different way that I approach projects. If it's stuff that I own, like books at Image, or if it's stuff like at Marvel. At Marvel, obviously I don't own the intellectual property, and so it's not, my job is almost IP protection. You know, they want me to tell stories, but whether you do it or not, the implied reality of the environment that you're working in is put the toy back on the shelf the way that you found it.
Yeah.
And so, because I know that's the truth of it, I don't even try and do certain kinds of stories at Marvel. I do, for various reasons, I mainly do just plot-driven stuff at Marvel, because any emotional change or any character arc change that you make is going to be reverted by somebody else into its primordial form, and if you do a story like that 5 years from now, the book that you wrote or the story that you wrote is going to not be important because of the way that you portrayed the characters. And so if you want your stories and your books to sell for a prolonged period of time, you almost have to do a closed character arc and have it just be plot driven. There are plenty of people that would disagree with me loudly and passionately, but that's kind of my working theory for Marvel stuff. But at Image, I do a little bit of everything. Some guys I work Marvel style, which is where you just write the plot and then they draw the book and then you come back and you write the dialogue over it. Manhattan Projects is the most open-ended thing that I work on. I don't plan the book out. We just do what we want to do that month. It doesn't have an ending. It's almost completely free form, and we can change it every month, and I think that is reflected in the work on that. But for the most part, I just, more than anything else, I mine my previous work for connections in future issues, so that it gives the illusion of like this super heavily structured, super planned out work, when the truth is that it isn't always that way at all. But whenever I hear people talk about my stuff, that's what I hear a lot of. Long form planning and storytelling and all that bullshit. So
it very much seems that way with your work, though. It seems like you are meticulous about the planning and the structure and where it's going.
Yeah, a lot of that is not true.
Well, that's a credit to you, man.
Sometimes it is. I mean, I can do that. I mean, I can build a clock if I needed to, and if I had a lot of time, I might prefer to do it that way. But because I'm having to do so much on the fly and so much at once, and I mean, there are months where I write for 10 different guys that are drawing at one time, and that's just, it's impossible to get in front of that. It's just, or very far in front of it. You're just trying to lay down enough track that you don't die.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So. We'll make this our final question.
Okay.
We've taken up so much of your time. So Joseph asks again, he says, in the light of Snowden and Manning, could this work be done today? Or considering both individuals' experiences and what they mean to open communication, would that change the story if you were doing it now?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't mean to get too heady's not the right word, but I don't mean to get too obtuse. But the idea of truth is kind of malleable in and of itself. I mean, so it's all stories, and it's all a little fraudulent, and it's all constructed. So I don't know that Snowden or Manning have done anything except make new stories for people to tell. Mm-hmm. I mean, did they really accomplish anything? I don't know that they did. I don't know that I buy that. I don't know that they didn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I haven't followed it intimately because I think Snowden should be applauded. I know some people think that he's a traitor, but I think regardless of how big or small it is, I do think that there was a kernel of, I feel like I have to do the right thing in there, which I respect immensely. But I don't believe that we're going to get to the bottom of the story. I don't think that we're going to find the empirical truth behind what the government is up to. I don't know that I don't know that there's any uncovering that. I think it's so pervasive that it's not going to disappear, which is why it's so timely. It hasn't gotten better since those things. It's gotten worse. We believe much. We believe lies so much easier now because everything is. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's one of those things where we've gotten so good at telling stories and hearing like we've heard so much narrative, like we've been exposed to so much fiction that we recognize a story and we break down the story to the extent that we know the motivations of the person telling the story. Are you guys following me?
Yeah.
And so we're not even talking about what people are reporting anymore. We're talking about secondary and tertiary reactions and their motivations for the very reason why they're telling the story. Not whether it's true or not. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. It's why they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no getting to the bottom of the story when that's what you're doing. Everything is suspect. Everything's a lie. And so nothing can be the truth, which is fantastic for people that write lies and fiction for a living.
Yes, that's wonderful. So every time I get most of my news from The Daily Show and John Oliver and Stephen Colbert,
the important news.
The important news.
Yeah.
Every time they show a picture of Snowden, the picture looked just like you.
Oh, great, yeah.
And I was like, at first I was like, what's Jason doing on The Daily Show? But it's have similarities. It wasn't. I figured that out. Okay.
It's all lies.
It's all lies.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on our MOOC, and you're our final interview for this this MOOC. So this is awesome. It's a good note to go out on. And Super MOOCers, make sure you run out and buy his Avengers, all of his Avengers books, and do yourself a favor and get Manhattan Projects and East of West.
Oh, yeah.
Especially East of West. I just love it.
Oh,
I love Manhattan Projects too, but East of West that's one of the books.
It does it for me. Yeah.
That we just stop and read when it comes in. So.
Oh well, we just sent an issue to press. So 3 weeks you'll have a new one.
Nice.
Yes, we will have it. Our customers really like that book here at Alter Ego. They really
do.
They love that. We have a huge following. Yeah, they like it.
Oh, well, thank you.
A lot. So thank you so much, and we appreciate you taking the time, especially with our technical difficulties. And please keep writing. And thank you for everything. Okay.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it, guys. This was fun.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.